staff and gallery. We are live streaming, so anybody who is watching us live, welcome to you also. I declare the March meeting of council open, and before I go much further, I'll congratulate Janine. I understand that you fulfilled your probationary period yesterday, so welcome to council formally.
16 years, 9 months ago.
Members, we have leave of absence from Councillor Willie Smith and Councillor Johnston. Welcome back to the fore, and you've been in our thoughts and prayers all along, and I know that when you fully recover, you're going to be a climber from now on the cycle, because you've lost a little bit of weight. Good to see you, mate. Members, we have an apology from Councillor John Angus. Would someone like to move that apology? Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. Item 5.1, the minutes of the previous meetings for confirmation. That was the council meeting held on the 16th of February 2019. Someone move Councillor Hearn, seconded Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. Next item is the amendment of a motion on the 2018, that's 22-33, that's the community transport eligibility and full cost recovery model. It's just a correction in the minutes. Councillor De Vries.
Yeah, I make the recommendation.
Move Councillor De Vries, second Councillor Troop. All those in favour? Carried. Members, the next item is 1.7. There's a petition for a request to seal Goldfields Road, Cockatoo Valley. Any questions? Councillor De Vries.
Yeah, Goldfields Road, Cockatoo Valley. That's not that's not the strip that runs off Parawira Road, is it? Is it the other end, or?
It's the other end. It's the closest section to Cockatoo Valley.
It's near Balmoral Road, runs off Balmoral Road.
Is that where you're thinking?
Sorry?
Goes across to where you're thinking.
Yeah, no, I just wondered which strip we were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a short section, as Councillor Barrett has indicated. There is an existing, as the report indicates, there is an existing silt section, which we did many years ago because we was having trouble holding it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a section that then joins into Green Gully Road.
What's the purpose for doing that? Did they specify in the?
Well, in essence, I should let the director speak to it rather than me. So, Mr. Elding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just have that question again, Councillor?
Yeah, what did they give a purpose for why they wanted it sealed? I mean, there's always, it'd be nice, but there must be something more specific. So,
there's been ongoing concerns by the community due to the ongoing maintenance requests that are required for the road. So there's been some traffic counts completed on the road. There's a moderate amount of vehicle counts on the road. There is a inclined section of that road, which is always difficult to hold. So it's really, there's numerous requests, like most of our unsealed roads, for maintenance.
yeah. So because it's requiring constant maintenance, and they don't feel that the work that is being done is getting them to a reasonable level. That's the gist of it.
Yes, and there's connections into through Mr. Mayor. There's connections into B&Bs, and there's also
Linking to the Goldfields
there's
itself.
a connection into the Barossa Goldfields.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. No, yeah, thanks.
Will there be increased traffic on this road with the change to the access rights to SA water properties and so forth in that area?
I look at the section of road which, well, I I can go back many years when I used to grade it. It was a terrible section of road to try to maintain. There's difficulties on the flat section because of the amount of overhanging gum trees. So in winter time, it tends to pothole fairly easily because you've got leaf and droplets coming off the leaves, and that sort of stays wet pretty well all winter sort of thing. So the traffic has increased over the years. The Barossa Goldfields is out the other end, and as Mr. Elding has indicated, the section where you go down the steep hill and up the other side, it is so difficult to hold. I think the recommendation that Mr. Elding's put there talks about it just being assessed in our normal new initiatives discussion. I can probably say that at some stage in the life of, since we amalgamated, we have looked at accelerated seal programs, which in general, you've got to always put rubble on a road, and then you just consider in that context of then just sealing it where you've got these troublesome spots. But I think, as Mr. Elding's indicated, it's something that needs to be looked at in the new initiative discussions and see where we go from there. Questions or?
Yeah,
And then
it is a question, but Dave go first.
Well, it's a statement. I've been down there when it's been really wet a couple of years ago, and you can hardly drive down there in certain parts of it. So those photographs that we've got, yes, I agree with them. And I just think that, I think, Matt, we're grading it 5 times a year or something. Yeah, 5 and 2, which is a fair bit, and then that upsets it all. I suppose, and they say in their statements that it's sometimes worse after a grading, especially if it rains, I suppose. So it does need looking at.
Councillor Reeves?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I thought for some time that connecting Goldfields to Parawira Road would also be something that would be worth thinking about at some point from a tourism point of view. So perhaps we could look at that at the same time. I don't know if that's feasible, but I'm not saying we necessarily pay for it, but maybe scope it out at the same time so that, you know, what the total cost would be down the road.
Yeah, look, and I think the section of road there is evidence of regular material loss as a result of what's happening with the steep section and things like that. So it's a difficult section to hold. In the past, we've looked at sections of Rifle Range Road, so I think it's just something, as Mr. Elding's put in there, it can.
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor De Vries, so seconded Councillor Johnston. Anyone wish to speak any further? Or you wish to speak to the motion, or you already?
No, I think we've already covered it. Yeah.
All those in favour? Carried. Page 20, item 2.1 is the Mayor's report. Any questions? Councillor Burt?
I'm just curious, my old thing, just what was the update with the Concordia project? Just if there's anything that you can share with us.
Pretty much just to sort of highlight that they're very keen to and reinforce that they want to stay in the Barossa Council for obvious reasons, and just sort of the process that they need to follow and trying to see if there's opportunities to get that accelerated in any way. I don't know if there's anything further to add.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd describe it, it was an update.
That's it. Yes.
There was nothing new.
Councillor Barrett?
Yeah, just 2 quick questions, both interrelated, the Adelaide Wine Capital Cycle Trail and the workshop you attended and the consultant's visit, just inquiring in relation to the extension of the Amy Gillett Bikeway, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Barrett. The workshop, Ms Thomas and myself attended, along with the other representatives from other councils. Some were in person and others were online, as well as different people from the Department of Environment and the Tourism Office. So it was really expanding on where we were as the 6 councils working together, but also trying to get some traction further with the state government and where their focus is. It was a fairly positive workshop as far as that was concerned, and the importance of sort of still working together and gathering some more information for that, hopefully that federal grant application. We have part of the trip around where I took the consultants, we did go over and look at the Mount Pleasant section. The Mount Pleasant section, coupled with what the Adelaide Hills Council, whilst there's funds from the Adelaide Hills Council, as I understand, to extend it into Birdwood, there isn't the funds to go that next little bit at the moment into our council boundary. And there is some little bit of discussion around who's going to take over the ownership, because at the moment the Amy Gillett is looked after by the Transport Department. And of course, the Transport Department is more than happy to hand it over to the council. But very much we're looking at revisiting all of the costs, and part of that is the extension of the Amy Gillett into Mount Pleasant at due course. I don't know, Ms Thomas, you got anything further you want to add that where we're up to with that?
Through you, Mayor, yes, the other purpose of that workshop was for the consultants who are actually doing the feasibility report to enable us to apply for grants. They pulled that meeting together so all the councils could regroup, which we haven't done for a little while, obviously with COVID, etc. And you may recall that we last Building Better Regions Fund time, round 4, we went for a grant to try and get that feasibility report partly funded. We weren't successful, so the councils have now pulled together to fund that in any event. So that's really where that's up to. So there's a follow-up meeting this week for them to report back as to where they're up to. So hopefully we have that feasibility document that we can then start to use for grant funding for capital components of the track.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms Thomas, for your explanation. Appreciate it.
Any further questions? Would like to move? Councillor Boothby and seconded by Councillor Barrett. All those in favour? Carried. Members of the consensus agenda, is there any items from the consensus agenda that anyone wish to have withdrawn? Not, would someone like to move the consensus agenda? Move Councillor Johnston, seconded Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.1 is the 7.2.1.1 is the COVID-19.
Skipped on. 711.
So it's 711, page 74. Sorry about that. Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll declare a conflict of interest under the 711, obviously the matters in relation to my employment conditions and performance.
Thank you.
And I shall leave the chamber.
Members, with this particular item, I've had some discussions and just want to flag with you that over this period of this council, we've had different people represent, and whether there's any member that hasn't had a chance to be involved in the performance appraisal, that would be good. The other discussion is whether or not we're sort of doing the right thing by just continually doing an internal assessment, and that's a decision for all of the chamber to work through and make a decision on. I guess one of the suggestions was whether we have one external person, and off the top of my head, I've taken the liberty of flicking a text message off to James March as somebody who's out in and Martin is dealing with, whether that will just give another extra filter to the process. But it's really just a matter of you people having a discussion. Councillor Boothby.
Mayor, I'd like to move an alternate recommendation that we do undertake an external review this year and explain why.
Okay.
With that, do I do that now? Yep, so this is not any kind of, statement about Martin's performance in any way, shape or form. It's about, to me, it's actually about our performance and good governance, best practice, and also, I guess, having a chance to have a refresh of, the questions that we ask and how we have that conversation, and to actually invite someone who, has the appropriate experience to help us with that. It can rejuvenate the process. It does, when you answer the same questions in the same survey every year for 6 years, it does, it's hard to provide fresh feedback. And I think it would be great to have a new, approach to that. And obviously understanding that local government reform, is looking to require that. I think it would be good to be ahead of the game in terms of us ourselves having decided that it's actually, a good governance, good best practice thing to do, and to be fair to Martin, to give him some, new feedback with some external advice to help us do that. So in terms of the recommendation, I'd like to basically, the change would be that we undertake the annual review and engage an external consultant to assist us in that process in line with the procurement policy in terms of the procurement process.
No, that's fine.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
How much do you want to spend?
It will cost between $8,000 and $12,000. The staff are quite right, but if that's an investment in a CEO, that he is the only person that we actually engage directly, and he then is in charge of the whole organisation. We are a decent sized organisation. It's best practice to do that. We shouldn't be looking to save money by not doing it. To me, the money
Don't put motive into my question.
So not understanding why you've asked the question in that case. In terms of my understanding is that it will cost between $8,000 and $12,000.
Councillor Boothby, your motion is there. I might just add that it's unbudgeted at the moment, and I need a seconder now so we can enter into the debate.
I'd like to see the motion first, please, Your Worship. I'd like to see the motion first, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you.
So there's adding a bit to the current one, isn't it? Really.
Would have liked a bit more notice.
I can speak to that if you like, Mayor.
Yeah.
So I did actually have a
As
conversation.
soon as I get a seconder, I'll expect it.
Well, not following the process.
I guess what you're suggesting, Councillor Boothby, from what I understand, is that the council undertakes the annual review of the Chief Executive Officer's performance and remuneration externally.
Yes.
So rather than internally, we're talking externally, as well as, it would be just externally then, wouldn't it?
Well, it's been,
Yep.
You want to combine the two?
Speak to you. Well, get your motion first.
So basically,
then we'll get a
to engage an external consultant to facilitate an external review, basically.
With no input from anybody here as well.
No, that's not right. I can explain that.
Well, it doesn't say that. But
No.
Do you want me to explain how the process works?
Yeah, look, I think it will clarify things.
Sure. So basically, I think it was even possibly the year before I was elected, there was an external review done. That was the survey tool that we used came out of that process. That's my understanding and recollection. We've rolled on with using that process. So basically what we do, we'd put a tender out for 3 quotes, appoint a consultant. So there are a set of consultants that do this work all the time. The consultant then basically comes up with a methodology to review with us. So they would either interview us, or we do a survey, or there'd be a process that they would recommend to the working group. Working group would approve that process. All it is that you have an external person who can help basically guide us in that process, and look at what is best practice, because they do these things all the time, and there's plenty of good material for them to use. It just gives us a chance to do it in a different way. We absolutely, the whole entire process includes elected members, and the same way it does at the moment with senior staff. The review people who do that review would potentially remain the same. You could actually invite people externally, like James March, to even be a participant in that process. All it is just basically having someone else from outside give us some advice on, in 2021, what is the best way of doing this process, rather than just relying internally and having the same conversation the same way again, that's all.
So is there a seconder?
Yeah, I'm good.
Seconded by councillor Schilling. Yeah, you can expand as much as you like.
So yes, so for me, like I said, this is not about.
I'll let her speak to the motion first and the second.
So the reason for doing it literally is that this is standard best practice. There is a reason why the local government reform is looking to actually mandate this process, because councils aren't doing it. So what I want to do, and also for Martin as the CEO, to give him the best feedback we could possibly give him, is actually inviting someone who does this work regularly, who can say, here's a really good way of giving the CEO some good solid feedback about his performance, and let him have a chance to feed into that as well. It's just a mature conversation to have in that environment. So by relying on an internal review, we always, it continues the same process, which is going to give us this, a similar result all the time. I would just like to have a refreshed conversation, that's all.
Councillor Schilling, you
Yes, no, I'm happy with all that.
have questions?
I'd like to speak against the motion if I could.
I'll take a question first.
So I want to state at the outset that I'm not against an external review.
Beg pardon?
I'm not
Can
against.
you
an
speak
external
up a little bit?
review.
'Cause
I'll
we-
try.
Yeah.
You just have to bear with me. So I'm not against an external review. I want to state that at the outset. So I want to ask the question, wouldn't we be much better to have this group design a process that may or may not include an external review? Just that my experience of this is that the field can be quite narrow and you can end up spending a lot of money and end up with the same thing that we've already got. So I'm much more concerned about this being an option that we either do an external and we use our own resources to augment an external review. So this is just black and white, external review or nothing. I think we need a better motion. So my question is, could we have a better motion that enables a small group of better people to design a better process and come back to the chamber with a recommendation? Would that be a better way of doing it? Because just my experience with this is fraud. And you end up spending a lot of money and ending up with the thing that we're already using. The thing that we've seen here in the chamber is not unusual out there. It's not like we aren't doing the process. You're making it sound like we're not doing the process properly. I don't think that's the case. So can we design a better process? And we come back to this chamber with recommendations about the process. We're rushing straight into it.
We have a motion on the floor, so councillor
There was an answer to that question. Is there a better process?
Well, there's probably something processes we could all look at. I think we've got to deal with this one we've got on there. If it's defeated, well, then we can look at a different process. Councillor De Vries?
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, look, I understand where Councillor Boothby's coming from. And perhaps if this had come forward a couple of months earlier, then we would have had time to work it through. I might support it, but as in its current form, I don't see what we're gaining, and let me explain why. When Martin first was hired by this council, we actually did undergo exactly the model that you're describing for, I think it was 3 years. And what the external advisors were basically giving us, providing us with the pro forma, basically what we're doing right now is exactly, almost word for word, what they provided us with in the beginning. We found that each year that we did it, nothing was changing. And I was on each of those committees, and what would actually happen is we would it was exactly the way that the current system is operating, except that we were paying somebody $10,000 to sit there and basically chair the meetings and then explain to us the process that we were about to undertake. And after the third year, we said, this is ridiculous. They're telling us stuff we already know. They're not adding or changing anything to it. And we are basically doing the best practice that is being required anyway. We knew that because the external people were providing us with, this so-called best practice, and we've been following that ever since. And we've in fact allowed this process to evolve, and I think improve since that time internally anyway. At the end of the day, the committee that runs this process is only advised and supported by the external consultants. They don't actually run it per se. The mayor has the responsibility of making the final, overseeing the final process. And that will continue no matter what. So what we'll effectively end up doing is spending $10,000 to $12,000 to actually have somebody look over our shoulder and make sure that we're doing exactly what we're doing anyway. If I could be convinced that any change was actually going to occur in the process and understood what the change was going to achieve and why we were going to go into doing that, then I would support it. But at the moment, what all you're really saying is just to be sure that we're safe, that we're doing the right thing, let's get in an external consultant to check our homework, basically. So if I don't, maybe because of the time frame in which this has to be done, it has to be done, am I correct, before the end of the financial year, Your Worship?
I think we sort of aim to do it in that time
prob-
frame. Previous years, we have sort of let it lag a little
Yeah,
bit.
so, I mean, if this could, I suppose there's still potentially time for this to come back to us at the next meeting. If you could be more specific about what you felt was deficient about the current system and how this would then improve it, then I'm happy to spend the money. But if it's just better to be safe than sorry sort of approach, it feels like, and I don't believe that that's what you're doing, but at the moment, that's what I feel. Because in the absence of any other information, that's what I feel you're actually asking us to spend the money on. So I actually am convinced that the current system that we've got is robust and is best practice. And I take that not from anything other than the fact that when we went through the process that you've described, I think it was 3 years in a row, the council decided that it was money wasted and we could actually be more efficient and better at running the process internally. It wasn't because just to save cash. There was a sense that we were actually taking this additional filter, which is actually slowing the process down rather than improving it. But if the council wants to go down this path, I don't think it'll do any harm. But at the moment, it would be, in my view, a waste of money unless we actually have some objectives where we're saying, okay, we believe this part of the process isn't working and it needs to be addressed. So, in its current form, I will be voting against it.
Councillor Havik?
I'm not concerned so much about the money side of it. What I'm concerned about is the process. We've got a process now that's been working reasonably well or okay. The whole story is if it's not broken, you don't try and fix it. So I would like to know what the deficiencies are in the current process. All right, totally change it. That's my
Any others wish to speak? Not, I'll let the mover close the debate. Councillor
Thank you, Mayor.
Boothby?
So as I said, this is not the reason for asking to do this, and in terms of bringing this forward earlier, the report has been the same every year as well for several years in terms of we could go external, we could go internal, what do you want to do? So me putting forward the opportunity to go external shouldn't be a surprise that requires me to have flagged that several months ago. I would not have thought. It's a question that we ask ourselves every year. What I'm suggesting is that this year, that we do an external review, not having done an external review for at least 6 years. I think that's prudent for us to do that. I think it's good governance. I think it is an opportunity to invite someone who has the best practice skills, and there are a lot of people out there who can do this work. The LGA could give us plenty of people to approach to do that work. They are professional people who do this. They do good governance, as an occupation. What I'm saying is that rather than have us internally try and replace that expertise, let's outsource it for a year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have spoken to Martin, and I can assure you that Martin's not fussed either way. Whatever council's decision is, well, he's comfortable with.
So the only thing missing is the people that would be on the panel as well before we can actually move that motion.
Beg your pardon?
We need to have people on that motion.
On that motion still, okay. So we need to have some people, some names. As you can see, the Mayor and Deputy Mayor automatically come on. I suggested that you might want to consider some newer people to be involved. Councillor Troop, you have to go on. Thank you. Councillor Schilling, you wish to go on.
Mayor, I've got a question. When is the majority of this work done? Which months? Because this year I hopefully will be away during July. Now, if it's in July, then I would not be willing to stand.
We would need to start the process immediately, I would suggest, so that at least we can have this resolved before the end of the financial year, because it has budget implications for obvious reasons too. So I think the sooner we can move with it, the better it'll be.
Can I just ask a question?
Really close.
Well, I'm just asking. We're asking. All we're doing is hiring a facilitator.
yeah.
Yep.
Your Worship, just what would happen if this follows the previous model is that the people on this committee would probably meet 2 or 3 times in addition to what you would currently be doing as an orientation process. That seems to be what they did last time. So you'd have to begin this almost immediately, because you'd need to go through that orientation process, which I suspect would take a month or two if that was what happened last time. Then you would actually begin the process that we would normally undertake. So each of these people would probably be up for 6 or 7 meetings, something like that.
Yeah, and I think you.
At least that's what it was in the past. Absolutely. Maybe it's changed since. That was one of the reasons why we dropped it.
Is there another member who wishes to put your hand forward? Councillor Miller? Okay. That completes the motion that you have before you.
Me, it was me.
Oh, okay.
I put my hand up.
Yes, you did. Yes, okay. Thank you. There's the motion, members. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. We'll bring the CEO. Members, we have some very, very special people who have come to join us, and it gives me pleasure to recognise the ongoing valued contribution from the volunteers within our community. It goes without saying that without the volunteers and the effort that is put in on a regular basis, the wheels would fall off very, very quickly in our community. So I would like to call Mr. Wally Hearn, who come forward. Wally, come forward up here, sir. Whichever way you want to go. This is Wally Hearn with an E-A-R-N.
He's the imposter.
So, Wally, I understand that you started volunteering for the Barossa and Light Community Transport back in 2014. Over the years, Wally has contributed some 482 hours of volunteering, over 16,000 kilometres of driving, and I've always known that we get positive feedback from your clients that you take wherever they need to go. So Wally's come to us, and it's interesting because I know Wally personally in a way, and he was a previous president, I believe, of the Norwood Footy Club. So to come to Tanunda and change your colour.
Not president.
Okay,
I was on the board.
You was on the board, but yeah, to come to the Barossa and change your colours to black and white, that would have been a hard ordeal, but he's president there. No, Wally's been active in the community for a number of years. So Wally, congratulations, mate, and job well done. We'll have to shake hands. Yeah, I didn't know you that well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your Ellie Monfries is one of the many valued visitors. So come forward, Ellie. Ellie, you've been volunteering at the Barossa Visitor Centre since 2018, and you've supported the team for those 18 months. We have, as a council, thoroughly appreciated your contribution. We're aware that you always come with a never-ending smile, they say. You're always smiling. So
We try.
we try. But the importance of people coming into our community and the tourists and seeing a smiling face, because that's something special. So on behalf of council, we really appreciate. I know that the team down there have really enjoyed your company, your involvement and your contribution to our tourism industry, which is very, very important for our region. So congratulations to you, and thank you very much for your contribution over those years.
Thank you.
Members, the Bush Gardens regularly contributes in a very, very meaningful way. So Anne Yates, Anne, how are you? So congratulations, Anne. Anne, you've been volunteering at the Bush Gardens for 13 years, mainly in volunteering in the nursery. Some of the projects that you've been involved in have including growing plants for the Sturt Highway expansion, growing plants for the rec centre, growing plants for the Northern Connector projects. So you've just been growing everything in the valley all over the place. So thanks very much, and you're always actively involved in the Bush Gardens on opening days and whenever you can possibly get there. So thank you for your contribution. It's most greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
And Colin, you're also out in the Bush Gardens too.
I am.
And you've been growing all sorts of things on different projects, similar to what Anne has done, the rec centre, the new Northern Connector, and many wineries throughout the Barossa Valley, and setting up a nursery when it was new, right, in those early stages.
We moved from the maintenance area to the new building, yes.
Terrific. No, 13 years.
Been a while, yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So, no, thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate your contribution, and all the best for the future.
Thank you very much.
Members and gallery, the friends of the library, the Barossa Library. Now, I must admit, I always just thought libraries was just going and reading books, but there's far more to a library than what meets the eye. And of course, the Friends of the Barossa Library have been an active group since back in 1989. They've provided community-based support for the library. They've raised tens of thousands of dollars in resources and equipment. They've applied for grants, run quiz nights. There's been book sales, organising raffles. They've been involved in so many projects, and very importantly, our local history and the competitions associated with that has been well received. And later, the family fund through the storybook picnic. After almost 32 years of supporting our libraries, the Friends are pausing their activities for now, and we wish to thank all the many friends for their generosity in time and commitment, for their tireless work and passion for our Barossa libraries and community. So to the Friends of the Library, thank you sincerely on behalf of Council for what you've done over those years. And today I'd like to especially recognise Bill Bisco, OAM, Friends of the Library. Bill, you've been actively involved right from the way back the word go, 2004. You filled committee positions from 2011 and has helped with the president and secretary role from 2015. Bill has been a passionate Friends of the Library supporter, library advocate with a strong belief in promoting literature for children. Bill's wide engagement in the community has enabled him to promote the Friends, seeking support and sponsorship for many, many collections. Bill has regularly been engaged in interviews, many books and author books events. So Bill, congratulations to you. And it's been a great journey, and you've been a great stalwart for the Barossa. So thank you very much, sir, for your contribution.
Thank you.
Do you want to say a few words about your journey? Because you've been there for a long time.
Well, I might say this has been a very selfish thing on my behalf. I came here 25 odd years ago as an outsider, and every told you'll never be a member of the, never be part of the Barossa. The best thing you can do is volunteer. You meet people, you become involved, and you're clearly doing something worthwhile. And it was the best step I ever made, was to put my hand up to do a couple of jobs. And I really would, I commend you guys are all volunteers, you councillors and so on, and everybody in this room is working towards the aim of enhancing what we've got in the Barossa, which is unique. Thank you all very much for the recognition, and thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Thanks, Bill. Also, Friends of the Library. Oh, there you are over there. I'll come to you. So Claire, since 2009 also, you've been actively involved as a committee member, participating in many activities and in particularly focusing on book sales and supporting the treasurer. In 2015, you also held the role as treasurer. So you was the manager of coin. Well done. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
your contribution and
Thank you.
greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Can we just have a short, someone move, we have a short break? Before I do that, look, on behalf of council to you all, we really sincerely appreciate everything that you've done over the years and yeah, as I said earlier, without the volunteer contribution, this community would, and already this community is recognised for the wonderful contributions that you volunteers put forward. So thank you very, very much. We have a mover and a second. We have short adjournment. Moved Councillor Debris, seconded
Johnson.
Councillor Johnston, sorry. All those in favour? We'll just take some photos while we have you people here, if you don't mind. Thank you. which is 72.1.1, which is on page 76. The recovery plan and tariff impact update. Any questions that any members may have? Page 76.
Move the motion.
Move the motion.
I'll second
Moved councillor Barrett and seconded councillor Johnson. Speak to it, councillor.
No, it's quite evident, or excellent work by our CEO, and I support it fully.
Johnson? Yep.
I just would like to know if there's any more information you can give us on how they intend to attack this tariff impact response.
Thanks through you, Mr. Mayor. There's nothing officially been released, Councillor Schilling, but there is the idea that there will be some sort of industry adjustment type package. Figures I've heard are up to 10.7 million, but it's not specifically for any, it's for affected industries of all industries. So it'll be wine, barley, lobster, seafood. But it hasn't been announced, and obviously the money is sitting there to help the industry match what that will be. If nothing does come out, when that money will sit there doing nothing as well. So,
Okay, and that will,
we'll come back at a later date.
there'll be reports coming back on how that's been
Yep.
addressed?
Yep.
Thanks.
Any further questions? All those in favour? Carried. Page 113, 7.2.1.2, amendment to the procurement threshold. There's a recommendation. Any questions?
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved councillor De Vries, seconded councillor Miller.
There was a typo in there. Sorry. I think it refers to redirecting investment of 100K on page 90. 100K to the marketing plan. It should be 6.2.13 because I tried to check the reference and it wasn't there. So it says 6.13 and it should be 6.2.13. Yeah.
No worries, I'll go on quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mover and seconder wish to speak?
Not unless anyone wants to object. It's pretty straightforward.
All right, all those in favour? Carried. Oops. Page 115. 7.2.2.1, the monthly finance report as of the 28th of February 2021.
Move the recommendation.
Moved councillor Boothby.
Second.
Seconded councillor De Vries. Any questions? All those in favour? Carried. Page 118. The deed variation for the Commonwealth Home Support Program, 7.3.1.1.
Yeah, Your Worship, it looks pretty benign, but can somebody just explain exactly what this was? It felt very bureaucratic, the language. I'm sure it's all fine, but maybe somebody give a quick summary of this one.
Ms. Thomas?
Through you, Mayor, so it's basically our funding deed for our collaborative officer project, which is the Deb Anderson position. It is complex because this funding is all wrapped up in so many different layers of federal funding and then state funding. And they've just buried the...
So we're just ratifying.
Exactly, and the deed requires us to have it sealed, so we have to bring it back to you each time.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to move that.
I'll second it.
De Vries, seconded councillor Schilling. All those in favour? Carried.
Just didn't want to do something dumb.
Page 172, 7.4.1.1, the 2021 Barossa Vintage Festival Vintage Parade. Any questions? I think
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved councillor De Vries,
Yeah.
seconded councillor Troop. All those in favour? Carried. Page 175, the Infrastructure Asset Management Plan 2020 to 2030, the adoption of the plan. I'm sorry, back one. The cemetery management policy release for public consultation on, that's 7.4.1.2.
So moved.
Moved councillor Miller, seconded councillor Hearn. Anyone wish to comment? All those in favour? Carried. Now the infrastructure plan. On page 186, 7.4.1.3. Any questions? Someone wish to move?
I'll move.
Moved councillor Boothby, seconded councillor Havik.
Just a comment.
Yep.
May I just, the new plan format is as, good as I think it possibly can be, but we're still not getting strong engagement on this stuff. So it's just, flagging it for ongoing discussion in terms of how we actually engage with the community in this conversation, because it's, we've gone from 4 volumes to a really succinct document and we're still not getting engagement. Just not sure how we do that.
Councillor De Vries?
Yeah, I was going to make a similar comment. I'm never quite sure whether lack of engagement is a positive sign or a negative sign. I'm inclined to be an optimist and think it means perhaps the community are pretty satisfied with the way things are. Engagement tends to occur, I find, more when people are angry than when they're delighted. So maybe it's a good thing.
We'll go with that.
I guess it's a very,
May notwithstanding.
the version is a very overarching document.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. I guess the devil's in the detail once you start looking at service levels and those sorts of things too. So.
But I agree also with Councillor Boothby, it's a very reader-friendly document, or as reader-friendly as such a document can be made to be. So I'm struggling to think what we could do different, even if we wanted to. So maybe we are just doing it right.
Thank you. Any further? All those in favour? Carried. Proposed road closure for the 2021 Barossa Air Show, page 240.
I'll move the motion there.
Moved councillor Havik and seconded councillor Hearn. Wish to speak?
No, it's all self-explanatory.
Thank
It's
you.
been on before, so no issue.
All those in favour? Carried. Member 7.5.1.1, the building fire safety on page 242.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved councillor De Vries. Seconded councillor Boothby. Any comments, either the mover and the
I
second?
assume the advice we're receiving is sound.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. The draft building inspection policy, the consultation approval on page 255, 7.5.1.2. Questions?
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved councillor De Vries.
Second.
Seconded councillor Hearn. All those in favour? Carried. Environmental services, 7.5.2.1, consideration and adoption of committee resolutions, the Barossa Bush Gardens on page 267.
Move the recommendation.
Moved councillor Boothby, seconded councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. 7.5.2.2, the Gawler River Flood Management 9 million budget funding on page 276. Any questions?
I'll move the recommendation, noting and acknowledging all of the above.
Moved councillor De Vries and seconded councillor Johnston.
I enjoyed the language of that one, actually.
Okay. All those in favour? Carried. Just watch
You write
this-
that one, Gary? Well done. That was funny.
Watch this space for that one.
Yep.
Page 290, 7.5.4.1, the enforcement policy, post-consultation approval. It's page 290.
Yeah, move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved councillor De Vries, seconded councillor Troop. Any questions?
No, just a comment. Again, I very much enjoyed reading this report and the comments from the community were interesting.
All those in favour? Carried. 7.5.5.1, the hard waste curbside collection on page 309.
Move the motion here.
Moved councillor Haybeck,
I'll second this.
seconded councillor De Vries. Councillor Haybeck, you wish to speak?
I do. I think this is a long time overdue. Members out there in the public and the council ratepayers have been asking for a hard waste collection for some time. And I think the system as it's written up now is probably the best we're going to get to start off with. It relates to all people that have maybe have a washing machine they want to get rid of. They can do that, whereas before they could not. And so the voucher system and also the vouchers for rural people is a good idea. Whether we need more than 500 will only be a matter of time to work out. But I think it's one of the best things that I've seen since I've been here on council, because it will stop people dumping things, which is an issue in itself. And I think we just need to move along with this and see how it goes. And so it would be a bit of a pilot scheme as well, I would say. But if it needs amending later on down the track, well, we can do that. I must thank Gary and his team for the work they've done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind speaking to this actually. I agree with Councillor Haybeck. This I see as the first step, and it may well be that the take-up is huge and we may need to double the budget on this. And I'm actually mentally preparing myself that maybe around October we'll be topping this one up, and I'm fine with that. We have had a lot of comment about this idea of a general heavy waste pickup pretty much since I've been on council. It's going back, I think I'm in my 17th year now, so it's been a long, long time. And I think there's a nostalgia for this because looking at what they do in the metropolitan areas, this idea of just this blanket, everybody chucks their stuff out and then there's a week-long rummage through each other's rubbish, which I think is something a lot of people long for those days. That doesn't happen in the city either. The model that we're looking at here is very similar to what a lot of the city models are. So I think it's a good compromise. There will be always those who would still want to see that general pick up, but for the benefit of the gallery, anyone listening in on YouTube land, the cost of that could blow out to well over $1 million a year, for that exercise. It's a huge amount of money. This feels like a more reasonable way to go. This has proven successful in other areas, and I applaud Councillor Haybeck for pursuing this because he has pretty much since he's been on the council. And I think this is something that is a good first step. I think we will probably end up extending it. I am concerned about a few things. For example, that the same people will use it year after year. And I think I was chatting to Mr. Mavronak about that we'll have to find some way to control that so that it's fairly and evenly distributed. You don't want it all to go to one town, for example, and we don't want the situation that on July the 1st or whenever it kicks in, that everybody suddenly hits the phones at, first thing and then they lock it up. But as a good, and I'm sure, so there will be teething problems, I'm sure of that, but as a good first step, I applaud Mr. Mavronak for doing this. And I'm really curious to see how this one plays out, but it will be a good first step. Thanks.
Councillor Johnston?
Just might be worth noting that in areas where there's turnover of people like itinerant workers and so on, students coming in and out of a region, there are now websites that facilitate swapping of stuff for free. So, you know, what used to be the rubbish now takes place online. And there might be an opportunity for us to promote that as a way of people disposing of stuff. You know, in the world of IKEA and other cheap furniture and so on, second-hand furniture or stuff just doesn't have any value anymore. So, I mean, my daughter's furnished her flat in Canberra purely for free by hovering over these websites that just say, I've got stuff.
Mr. Matter on that?
Yeah, just like to make a few observation comments on what's been said and answer questions that Councillor Hayvig asked via email. It is a bit of a pilot, so it is going to be sort of to see how much response we get. Given the experiences of our cousins across the way in terms of what they've done, they do about 750 vouchers a year. The take up is pretty much automatic. So in terms of potential for unused vouchers is probably going to be limited given the population size of the Barossa. The actual management of the voucher system, yes, we will be doing it through our customer request system. So hopefully we'll be able to monitor which properties are actually obtaining the vouchers so that we can avoid people sort of doubling up, particularly in terms of both the curbside and the voucher for disposal. That's one thing we'll have to closely monitor. And equally important is that this system has to work alongside education, which we've always highlighted right through the discussion around waste. And the fact that we'll hopefully still be involved with the garage sale trail, other opportunities to promote other businesses that provide a service to the community, etc., etc. So this is not in isolation, it's part of that bigger picture about dealing with waste across the region.
Thank you. Put the motion, all those in favour? Carried. Members, we now move into confidence, the executive services to talk about smart city proposal. Would someone move to go into confidence? Councillor Breeze, seconded Councillor Johnston. All those in favour? Carried. the tender for the Bush Gardens Nursery, the drainage and water recycling project. Questions?
Don't forget, you're going to go back to the conference.
Oh, sorry,
No,
go back in.
move we go back in the
Someone move, we go back in. Councillor DeBreeze, Councillor Boothby, all those in favour? Carried.
I was out on email.
Oh, that's right. Yes, there is. Someone move that we go back.
So moved, Mayor.
Moved Councillor
Sorry, I
Boothby,
missed-
seconded Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. That was that. Yep, we're out of confidence now. You're on. Yeah, thanks. Who's now the business?
We haven't been very interested in Councillor Troop's,
Councillor Troop.
Can I declare a conflict, please?
Yes. Where are we going to now?
Members, the request for a leave of absence from Councillor Troop from the 14th of April to the 8th of May 2021 inclusive. Moved Councillor Miller, seconded Councillor Johnston. All those in favour? Carried.
Councillor Troop to go on.
I wonder if anyone's ever knocked one of those back. Oh, okay.
Any other urgent business? Councillor Miller.
Mayor, I'd like to apply for leave of absence from the 12th of April to the 7th of May inclusive. It's contingent on a few issues that my son has medically, so I'll leave it at that at this particular point and apply for the leave of absence in anticipation.
I'll move that.
Yeah, it's got to
Hang on a sec.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now Councillor Johnston, you
I'll
move.
move that. You just said.
And seconded Councillor Troop. All those in favour? Carried.
Did you give it times? It's the times.
Members, that's our agenda for the March meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 20th of April 2021. With that, I'll close the council meeting.